and our friend and coach Andy Grahn. How are you, Andy?
Good, good.
Cheers.
Good morning to you guys.
I'm
Bright
still
and early.
waking up, so I'll let you boys start it off. That was a
Put
problem.
Yeah.
put your Zyn packet in.
Uh-oh.
We've
You
upgraded.
know, so what do you mean upgraded to what? The next level?
Oh, Velo, it's just a little bit more.
The the joke around my gym, we found an article once that if you put those packets in your butt or in your foreskin, they are more effective.
I'm going to use that.
Fuck,
And so,
Uh,
I've only got two left.
or we'll put one in each place.
yeah.
And so that's the joke. Like for a while, it was like, all right, who's got Zyn in their foreskin today?
Yeah, we got a bunch of wrestler kids that just have those in while they're training the whole time.
They have them in,
A
and they're not.
Jewish man talking about foreskins.
Yeah, well, that's why mine are in my butt.
All
I'll
right,
see
boys.
them training sometimes, and they'll have the outline of the packet like in their shorts, like under their. And I'm like, are you that addicted that you can't just put that on the side? It has to be on you the whole time. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
no.
But they make a caffeine packet now you can put in the same place.
See, and they're
What,
probably rich from that too. That they probably make $1 million from something silly like that.
For sure. I don't know why they're not combined yet.
Yeah. There you go. That's
what's your,
you.
what's your,
That's
what's
all
your
you.
thought, what's your thoughts on? I tell you, something these little science nuggets just rattle in my head. And I'd read years and years ago about the smoker's paradox, right? That smokers tended to have lower incidence of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's and whatnot if the lung cancer didn't get them. I'm not advocating for smoking, and there was an interest in nicotine as being neuroprotective, and I've read both things on that. Got any thoughts?
I have no idea. I would be surprised. Some of that pop psychology stuff, I would be surprised if there isn't a lot of mixed evidence, kind of like, the headgear issue in boxing, right? Like there's mixed evidence on both sides, whether it's protective or harmful.
Oh,
So
it's definitely mixed. I'm just there's certain areas of research I cherry pick,
yeah,
and I use
Yeah.
me too. Me too.
With, me too. I mean, anything that benefits me, I cherry pick it.
Exactly.
Um, I would say this just without knowing, without looking into it. I bet there is some amount of nicotine that is neuroprotective. The problem is that you don't take nicotine because it's neuroprotective. You take nicotine because it feels a certain way. And the amount of nicotine that makes you feel a certain way goes up and up and up. And that is probably more than is neuroprotective.
I don't
And
disagree with any of that.
Yeah, that
and
sounds
then
right.
coming off it, I know smoking is physiological and psychologically addicting, but nicotine is certainly physiologically addicting, just like the caffeine in your hand.
Well, I
It's
used
both.
to I used to push back on that, but I think you're probably right. Have you read? We're all over the place already. Did you read? Was it Chasing the Scream? What was that book on addiction by the English fella, been on Rogan and stuff? I think it's Chasing the
No.
Scream. It's about addiction and whatnot. He was talking about
Okay.
nicotine in and of itself wasn't addictive. It was the ritual and the habit and the delivery system. But I've read different things on that.
Yeah, Zen is not making billions of dollars because it's not addictive,
Yeah, yeah, for real.
right? I mean, I like to say that marijuana is not addictive either, but
Yeah.
you know, I've never done it before, but I assume it's addictive.
I never
Yeah,
inhaled.
that's it.
So, Scotty, before you came, Andy.
Chasing the Scream by Johan Hari. You enjoy it. It's all about
Oh yeah.
addiction and stuff. It was interesting.
Well, he's the guy that invented the mechanisms that have addicted us all to social media. I I once heard him
You're
say
thinking
that.
of Jonathan Haidt,
No, I'm thinking of Hari. He wrote a book called The Attention Economy, right?
maybe.
He's been on Rogan. I'm pretty sure it's him. Even if it's not, I'm pretty sure it's him. And he said that when they designed all these social media things, they based them off of slot machines. And I've never been able to unsee that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you've
I've
ever
heard
been
that.
to and you've been to plenty of
What was the
casinos,
book called?
Andy,
What was the book called?
is it The Attention Economy? Something like that. Let me see.
Jamie, pull it up.
I wish
Yeah.
we had a Jamie.
You got.
We're both our own Jamie. No,
That
that's a
was
different.
that was actually by Karen Nelson
Yeah,
Field.
that's a different book.
Anyway,
Yeah, whatever.
and last thing I'll say on nicotine, although he's a little disgraced now, Peter Attia was a big advocate for it. For again,
Peter Thiel just blew up.
not
Oh,
Peter,
I'm
not
sorry.
Peter Thiel, Peter Attia.
It's
Oh,
called
really?
Stolen Focus. How you can't pay attention, how to think deeply again. He's the guy that
Yes, yes,
designed.
yes, yes. That's Johan
Yeah,
Hari. Yeah.
yeah. He designed the how we interface with a lot of the social medias and that idea of the. And now look at it, and you'll see it's a slot machine.
Yeah.
All right, Scotty. Before you came, Andy was laying out his horrific knee history.
Can you explain it? Sorry, no, go ahead.
And so the last one happened at a judo club, and someone had done a move called a kanatashi, right?
Kaniatoshi.
Kanatoshi. I'm not good with the Japanese names. I know what it looks like. It's the old man, right? It's supposed to be. Some people call it the old man.
Oh, it's the valley drop.
The valley drop.
Yeah,
I've
it's
heard
like
it referred to.
Have like a side bear hug, and then
Yeah.
you kind of trip them backwards.
And if done properly, I've heard it that is what old man judo sort of looks like, because there's no amplitude, there's no effort. You're basically using your body weight to
you're
to drop.
You're falling to pull them over. So it doesn't require a lot of explosive power. It's done. I mean, most judo moves, theoretically speaking, done right, should require the minimal amount of energy, basically.
But this one appears to result in more horrific knee injuries than almost any other
Yeah.
takedown.
Yeah. We've had it twice at the academy, and I've heard from a lot of other coaches around the country that this is the one that wrecks, one of the 3 top knee wrecking moves. Jumping close guard, we've had people get messed up from that. Kani Basami has been banned, except for tournaments. So there are some videos back in the day of people getting, and probably some modern ones too, but yeah.
Is that like a scissor takedown, Andy?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Japanese either.
Yep. Yeah, it's the scissor takedown. But yeah,
So,
yeah.
Three times you've done your ACL.
I'm getting my 3rd one fixed.
Same side.
Same side, yeah. Yeah.
So, so this leads me to 2 questions then, Andy, or two points we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
How I have some rules in my gym for the wrestling portion, right? And so jumping would be one of them, right? Nothing where you have to jump, and nothing where you're allowed to fall to make the other person fall. And they've been good. They've stopped people from doing those things, but I assume they also sort of get in the way of creativity. But when you make rules, how do you see them being followed in the gym during live work?
Well, I think, first of all, I think there's like a cultural element to this, where when people have trust with each other, they are not so hyper competitive that they're doing things where people can get hurt. First of all, they're not actively trying to hurt their partner while we're doing something that actually is trying to hurt someone. So I think that's the most biggest important thing, that the culture is good, that everybody trusts everybody and everybody feels safe. I think when people start to have a lack of trust there and get hyper competitive, that's where things get a little too risky and intense. And then, it's not like I'm constantly like your rules. I have the same type of rules. I don't constantly say them, but I think it kind of comes from me to the, advanced people, to the semi-advanced people, to the intermediate advanced. It kind of just bleeds down through the school. And so it gets enforced that way. And I think that's really the only way you could do it. I mean, what am I going to do? Sit up there every class and announce these are the techniques, these are the things you can't do? Like, there are certain things, certain cues that I'll say often, but the safety thing is just a lot of common sense. And I think the problem with traditional, and the judo club that I'm at is very traditional. The problem is, as you guys know, that there's this very static drilling where it's very dead, and then lots of talking and analyzing of moves, a bunch of really hard repping of uchikomi and throws on the crash pad, and then it's randori. And then there's the middle space where a lot of the good learning is occurring. I mean, we actually do French randori, so I don't want to talk really bad about the club. It's the best club in Minnesota, and the senseis are all great. And I got my black belt there, and I love the team and everyone. But the middle speed and the sort of the middle ground where there's possibilities for success and failure, and we're working on detecting opportunities, is where all the good learning happens. And there's less time dedicated to those middle areas of, for lack of a better analogy, than I would like. And I think that's where we develop a sense of safety and avoid dangerous stuff. So
I want to come back, put a pin for 1 second. I made a note, that middle area, because that's a question I want to discuss with you guys, because it came up recently, but I want to stay on this thread for a second. So you're talking about the rules, something Greg and I were talking about this, and when he's designing a drill where one of those rules might be broken, that's when he'll highlight that as a constraint.
Okay.
So
How does he
if they're
know when they're going to break the rule?
right, he knows, and we all know, like if we're doing stuff where we're working towards body locks and they're allowed to finish, that's where they may, do something
Standing. Yeah.
right, standing. Or like one of my rules is if you lift them, you have to put them down.
Mhm.
Right. So we avoid all kinds of slams and mat returns. So
Mhm.
if we're doing drills where mat returns are going to be an answer, then that's when I'll highlight that rule.
Mhm. Yeah.
Not during like my high level practice where they are always mat returning each other. I expect them to know that and the culture to do that. But the middle level students who are just learning how to finish these things live, that's when I'm constantly trying to help them with these
Yeah. I mean, I think I
rules.
see what you're getting at, and I've been struggling with like how do we do these big amplitude throws that our students are going to see in tournaments and fights,
Right.
um, and put it into, get it into a drill or a context. And I don't have the answer, but my anecdotes are this. I have them do what is called French randori at the judo club.
Right. I
And
like,
I
yeah.
kind of tweak the dials on it a little bit. And I don't ever really formally teach. Sometimes after practice, if they ask me about something, I'll give them the answer. But I don't formally
Sure.
teach judo throws in the jiu-jitsu or MMA practices that I run. But my students do them in tournaments and fights, and so it's emerging. And so whatever I'm doing it at the moment, my anecdote is that it's working, and I'm open to criticism on that. I don't know that I'm right about that, but I recently had one of my top female purple belts go to the New York Open, and she came back and she goes, "Hey, I hit Tomoe and Sumigaeshi, which is the Captain Kirk throw, and it's one of
Okay.
my favorite throws." And she's like, "I've never even done it. I just did it in the tournament." And I'm like, huh, "Okay, this is awesome."
Oh,
And I wanted the video, but they didn't get the video of it. But
nice.
so,
We do a lot of what I call everything but the finish.
mhm.
So
Yep,
we do it's French randori, it's wrestling,
yeah,
and they're chaining and they're defending and they're lifting and they're off balancing. And if someone falls down, we just allow them to fall down,
yeah,
but we're not trying to actively. And we get a lot of reps of that
yep,
in the all levels classes. And it seems to have, it seems to have improved the important parts of wrestling, and kept our injury rate, pretty low. I
yeah.
don't know if it's developing the same level of wrestling skill they would if they were just going, live to the finish, but I think we'd have more catastrophic injuries.
Yeah, I mean, we have some pretty high level wrestlers at our club and in Minnesota from both collegiate and high school wrestling here. Multiple times one of the multiple time state champions here listens to me blather on about these coaching ideas that we are all focusing in on, and he's like, yeah, when I just would sometimes spend 45 minutes of just flow wrestling with my coach, and he was like, that's when I got really good. And I think he's describing essentially what you're saying, which is a lot of catch and release and just
Yeah.
not slamming and landing on the guy so many times so you're getting just cranked on and you wake up the next morning and you can't train. I mean this is the paradox in martial arts is we're trying to do something to hurt the other person, and if we hurt them, they can't train the next day. And if we're doing something to hurt them and they're not being hurt, is what we're doing actually functional, right? So we
Don't
have
break
to
your toys.
yeah, we have to figure that out somehow, right? I think as we've all experienced, the more ecological, for lack of a better adjective, we've become, the more skilled, and I think the closer we are to solving that paradox. But there's no like 100% perfect
Yeah.
answer to that paradox.
I use the analogy, especially in my earlier classes where I'm trying to get people to understand sort of how to do this, of kids playing. And if you take a bunch
Mhm.
of kids and you just put them outside, they will start playing. And as they're playing, they will start to add their own constraints, their own rules. They will create this game. But if one of the kids is trying to win too hard, then the next day they don't invite him back.
Yeah,
And so I tell my beginner students that when we're doing these games, when we're playing, make sure that your partner wants to invite you back. And
yeah,
if the next day they don't want to train with you again, then you should probably think about, your behavior.
yeah. The one I use is like, hey, it's like when you're playing a pickup game of volleyball with your family on the 4th of July, or you're playing a board game at Thanksgiving. And then, of course, there's someone who's like, man, my family kills on those games. So, but Yeah, that playful attitude is that's where all the middle learning, you get in that flow state and you're just having fun. I mean, what the other one I use is like, what do baby wolves or baby dogs do
Huh?
when they're trying to learn how to kill animals, right?
Yeah, they
They
wrestle.
just they nip, they bite, they wrestle, and one of them goes too hard, and then he gets ignored for a bit, but then he's allowed back
Mhm.
in, and they play a bit, and you know, I don't know what you guys do, but I try to like sometimes talk about the science with the people that with your do you guys talk with your athletes at all about the theoretical basis of coaching ever?
Only if I want to, only if I want to see some glazed eyes or eyes rolling backwards. That might be on my delivery, but I do less and less of that now. Or if I
Yeah.
do, it's just in everyday speak.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot less too, but I feel like sometimes I have to justify myself, and I'm in a different realm than you guys because, I'm like the second in command, I guess, basically, or third in command. Um, but sometimes I'll use it. I'll try to kind of slip it in there with an analogy, and I have this riff on Trevor Ragon where it's like, you know, if you have a pack of wolves, I have a pack of wolves, you take your pack of wolves to the zoo. You guys practice killing animals, which are stuffed animals, at the zoo. I'm taking my pack of wolves out into the woods, and we're going to start with small game, and then we're going to move up to medium, and then we're going to move up to big. Which one's going to be better at killing animals in the long run, right? And I think that's a really great analogy for thinking about aliveness and really helping people understand how, yeah, you could do something on stuffed animals, but clearly, if you go, even a 5-year-old will tell you, if you go and you work on killing mice in the woods, and then you go to beavers and raccoons, you're eventually going to be able to kill a deer. And I think that really helps people see like why what we're the usefulness in failure in practice, and why having a little bit of struggle in practice is actually going to make you better than just getting the answers and repeating it a bunch of times.
Yeah, I don't. I the only as far as I'll go is I'll just let we'll talk about the fact that especially like after a practice that that we're doing what we do.
Hmm.
Like everything is geared towards like doing what we do, that we spend our time. And my guys all know exactly what they're in for, know exactly why we do what we do. Some of them listen to the podcast, some of them
Hmm.
taking my coaching course, and my coaching course has some material on this. Some of them coach for me. So now some of them engage me afterwards and want to have discussion about this, and I'm happy to do it because I'm always trying to deliver this message without jargon, without blazing eyes, without confusion. And
Yeah.
it's tough. I recently one of my former students, who he's a firefighter, is still a good friend, was asking me some questions, and he just I couldn't bridge the gap between what he believed was right and why, and the framework that we're using in writing. I'm much better verbally, even though
Hmm.
I think I'm a decent writer. In writing, he was just like, "This is just," he said, "This is just it's too much, too many words."
Yeah.
And I said, "All right, I have to get better at that."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, I've spent a lot of time talking to Sean Mishka up here about his interactions with people in professional sports, specifically NFL, and like we were talking about in the chat with the first principles. I think that a lot of people are just, they live in the matrix and we don't. And it's really hard for people who've been stuck in the matrix for that long. You can't just unplug them. So it takes time.
So then this brings us back. So let me, if I may, for a second. So last week I was at a thing with a bunch of the best strength and conditioning coaches from of collegiate sports, right? And I was lucky enough at a VIP dinner the night before. I was sitting with the strength and conditioning coaches from a major SEC college, and they're known for being like really good at this thing. And we were talking, and I said, "Well, what's your biggest problem? What's your biggest pain point?" And they said basically getting the work in the weight room and this and the skill training, the technique training to show up in a performance environment. That there's a gap there. And so I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
And the what I posed to them, because I didn't want to jargon, I didn't want to talk about it. What I posed to them was, what if you are creating a gap because of the direction of the that you are building this? So what if getting them faster and stronger than teaching them technique creates the gap? And so I would say to them, what if we use the performance environment scaled down to teach the technique. And it was like they had never even thought that that was a possibility.
Yeah.
And then they started saying, well, we have to teach them to do this, or we have to teach them to do that. We have to teach them. I said, why? Like, why do you have to teach them all to move, like to do this footwork steps together? Why can't that self-organize as part of the sport?
Yeah.
And they were just like, they had never thought that this could be done in a different way.
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned Jonathan Haidt earlier, and he has that book, The Righteous Mind, and he talks about the moral foundations theory. And one of those moral foundations is this idea that people have different levels of deference to authority, and then being like sort of subversive. And I think when we were thinking about like the broader socio-cultural constraints that we exist in, that's real. And a lot of people, they want like a dominant leader to like give them the answer and have all the answers, and for them to be like, as Greg Sauter said, like a domesticated dog, and they just want to be trained. And it's really hard when that's the world you exist in, to see that the athlete is really in the center of the decision-making process, and they are the ones that have to learn how to solve movement problems and be out there doing it, because the whole, everything you've ever heard your life is muscle memory and repetition, and just get more reps. And so yeah, it's like I said, just like you're peeling back the matrix. Like or as we used to hear back in the day, it's you got shit and concrete in your head, and we're going to remove the shit and concrete, give you a brain transplant, and we're going to plant new seeds. Like, it's going to take a while for that to kind of shift. So yeah, but I mean, it's interesting, but yeah, strength and conditioning, I am not well versed in, and I'd be really interested to hear more how Sean. I've tried to get it out of him how he designs his practices for football players, and he tells me, but I'll be excited at the Sport Movement Scale Conference to see his session and see what kind of stuff he does for S&C.
Well, the strength and conditioning component, the guys that I was sitting with, they're really good at bridging the gap between the weight room and the field when it comes to the athletic attributes, let's say.
Sure.
So, because they do have a middle piece between the weight room and the field where they can functionalize, and they talk about covering ground and carrying and changing levels as basically the missing ingredient between the weight room and the field. So they're really good at that, and I think they've proven that they're some of the best in that in the world. But the gap between technical training and technique training and a performance environment, they could see it. They knew it existed. They knew that they would teach some guy how to do, X, Y, Z, and they could do those reps. And then in the scrimmage, they were lost. And that gap, that skills gap, or whatever we want to call it, that you were talking about before, I think is self-created. Because that middle, I don't think that middle piece. So in my organization, we used to have the I method.
Mm-hmm.
Introduction, isolation, integration. And the more I think about it, the more I wonder if that the isolation phase is almost solving a problem that wouldn't exist if we didn't start with the intro phase.
Yeah. I've heard you guys talk about that for years, and it was fascinating to me when I first heard about it. And I think I heard you say this before, but the order in which you do that isolation phase, I think, is important. I think a lot of coaches start with the problem they have, and then they start solving it, and they start with their own interest. And the people can't connect explicit, informational, verbal analysis of movement problems that they first haven't experienced a lot. Like, one of our best grapplers ended up, after training for many years, got really into the John Danaher instructionals. And, at that point he could watch it once, and he had suffered through trying to solve this, finishing a heel hook or whatever so many times, that when he saw John explain it, it stuck. And so I think you're thinking about those isolated, decontextualized things like that. They need to have the context first. And so I think the order in which that happens, whether it's in the middle or at the end, is better than just starting with all the information. So I don't know if that helps, but that's the way I see it. And it's even better, I think, as you guys would agree, that it happens when they ask.
How much of that stickiness do you attribute to like appeal to authority, in the sense that it was Danaher? It's interesting to say Danaher, right?
Yeah.
There's probably 100,000 variations of the heel hook by
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
bunch of unknown people. But if Danaher tells you something, there's a stickiness. And I often feel, people go to
Yes.
these seminars and talk, well, this changed my game and that. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe it changed your game.
Yeah,
But there's a receptiveness to whoever's delivering the message, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
I
just
mean,
that's
it's
just
real.
it's just nature.
Yeah, can't be a prophet in your own land, we say. Like, will Greg or I or Nat will give somebody a part of the answer, and then they'll get it, and then some time will go by, and they'll they won't, and then they'll do it a little bit, and then they won't do it for a while, and then they'll see it on a video somewhere, and they'll be like, yeah, or they'll learn it. They'll go take a class when they're on vacation, and they're like, yeah, check out this thing I learned, and we're like, yeah, we told you that 2 years ago. But I think,
Proximity bias
yeah,
is always how I word
the
it. Yeah.
the brain is just really not, it's like driving to work in the same, you forget what the everything that happens when you drive to work in the same path every day, and then when you drive a different way, like it's the variability and the novelty of it sticks. So I think that's one of the things we're trying to increase with using the ecological approach, is that novelty effect. And I guess one question I'd have for you guys is, do you ever have you experienced that you're doing, and I think one of the guys was in the chat with this the other day, last night even, about like we're kind of at the end of novelty basically. And I don't know, I don't have the answer, but I worry about it sometimes, that we're doing so much novelty that it's no longer novel. We've kind of hit the end of the juice. And I don't know, what do you guys think?
Well, the very first conversation I had with Greg when we were introduced, I think 4 years ago or something, he was blathering on about novelty. Greg does this a lot, right? You'll be talking about something, and I think I know what he's talking about, and then 6 months later, I go, that's what he was
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about, and he was
yeah,
talking about novelty. And so your point is, are we putting so much novelty in that there's no novelty left? I
yeah,
would suggest that's the goal.
yeah, true. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I think the way we're talking
Immune to
about,
novelty.
right, but I think we're having I think novelty, almost like everything else, needs to be defined, because every rep is novel, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so how much of that do we have to build into the games? Like, do we need an infinite number of games so they see a different game every day? And I don't think so. I think we play pretty much the same 4 or 5 games, but every time they're with a different partner, every time they come in, or every time we describe it differently, it's a little bit different. And it's
Mhm.
enough different that when they move through the room and play this game with 4 or 5 different people, that's enough novelty. Um,
Yeah,
then I think,
you've been talking about that, right? Again, the variation in the room is
well, not
providing the
just
novelty and heavy lifting.
right. But variation is even, I think it's more than just partners and people. I think if you did the same drill Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it will be different every time, because you describe it differently, because the partners are different, because the day is different, everything's different. So if we drill down to what we think are, I don't want to use the word first principles, I hate that. If we drill down to what are the important things that we want our students drilling over and over and over, then we're only going to come up with 3 or 5 different things. And so we're just trying to come up with ways to keep them engaged on those 3 to 5 things. And there's only so much width there.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the variability of the depth is infinite.
yeah. I think a
But
lot of it's the practice partners themselves,
yeah,
right? Like
that's
I don't know if Scotty said this once, but I think it was you, Scott. But it's like you are your best coach. Your second best coach is actually your training partners, and then we are like basically in third place.
I'm just a DJ.
And right,
right.
and
I think Rob Gray said something like your best piece of training equipment is your partner.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I think that's the real keeping people engaged, is the group, which is the synergy of the coach and the training partners and the vibe in the room. So, but
Andy, we probably should have opened up with this, but you've been at the academy for over 30 years,
yeah.
coaching alongside Coach Greg Nelson.
Mhm.
You have a background in philosophy. Have
Uh-huh.
you always, have you, and now you're, doing your best to be in the eco space and
Yep.
whatnot, as we all are.
Yeah.
Was there always a tendency, because you're like philosophy background, that always kind of thinking different ways and thinking a bit more deeply about the sport? How did
Yeah.
you come across all this, and did it just make immediate sense, or was it a subtle shift for you?
It made immediate sense for me. I'm pretty subversive. I'm pretty unathletic, and so I can't ever rely on athleticism. So I've always been really intensely focused on skill myself. And I have some core memories early on of doing constraints-led approach training and making incredibly fast improvements in my own skill. Um, so uh, yeah, like as soon as I heard about it, I was doing my best to make my practices, as closely aligned with the principles that I could. So yeah, it was pretty immediate for me. And also, like the DNA of the academy is Jeet Kune Do, where Greg was Rick Faye's training partner. Rick Faye is one of Gurdan's oldest students. And I started with Rick Faye as well, and Greg. And so the JKD philosophy and the way Gurdan has communicated to his students and eventually to me basically is that has that sort of ecological um, approach kind of embedded in it. So it was pretty quick for me. It wasn't that hard for me to see. But
I,
I'm kind of a know-it-all too, and so I liked having the superiority of the knowledge, and I liked kind of razzing Greg and some of the other coaches with like, hey, I got this new secret advanced way of getting people good fast, and I kind of pissed them off a little bit on purpose. And they knew that I was doing it, but they still took the bait quite often. And honestly, I probably did mess up communicating it to Greg and all the other coaches. So, but I knew it was going to be like it's the Matrix, man. Like it's really hard. But Greg has kind of two sides. He's got this athletic background in gymnastics and wrestling, where it's been repetition and drilling and perfect mechanics, and then the JKD. So it's he sees he sees it. I think more now better. I think in the past few months I've been doing a better job of trying to communicate the ideas, but for me, it was quick, man. Really
see,
quick.
Greg's my
I'm gonna
spirit animal.
I'm gonna
What a
push back.
couple of
I want to
bastards.
push back on something
Yeah.
because not about Greg and I had a couple of these conversations sort of years ago. And I don't think the Jeet Kune Do.
Greg Nelson. Just
Yeah,
Greg Nelson. Yeah.
Greg Nelson. I'm sorry, yeah, Greg Nelson. Who I think is just an amazing human being. Just
Mhm.
let's just get that out of the way. And I was lucky enough to spend time with him in some of the things that we did and seminars and things like that. And I've always tried to pick his brain because I saw him walking this very interesting line where some of what I saw him do in some of his classes and some of his seminars were just that very old school repetition. Here are four variations. Let's
Yeah.
drill them, drill them, drill them. And then when he would lay out what their weekly practice schedule would look like in the academy, it was
Yeah.
all sparring.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Monday we do wall sparring, Tuesday we do this
Yes.
sparring. And I was like, where does the Jeet Kune Do trapping, which is the deadest of the dead, where does that fit in? And
Yeah.
I remember he said, well, that stuff is for the JKD nerds.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Of
you
which
said
he and I are JKD nerds.
yes, but I also came up through the same exact thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I never saw, to me, the Jeet Kune Do world, and this is not a knock on Dan and Asanto or anyone else, was a
Yeah.
cosplay world.
Oh yeah.
There was no ecological approach. There was no aliveness. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah. It's
all
true.
about collecting
Yeah.
and not about fighting. And so that's why when Thornton, even I'll go back one step. I used to train with Paul Vunak a lot. He was
Yeah.
one of Dan and Asanto's, main students. And he separated out these two streams. One he called self-perfection, which is all the Jeet Kune Do pattern type stuff.
Yeah.
Dead pattern type stuff. And the other was self-preservation, which was fighting. And his ratios and what I saw in the Jeet Kune Do world was like 10% fighting and 90% everything else. And I saw even less of that from, well, if you went to a Dan and Santos seminar, it was 100% dead.
Yeah.
And so I think for you to get where you've gotten and Greg to get where you've gotten, that's the influence of being around combat athletes.
Yeah.
I think without that, and myself, without Thornton, without combat sports, without all those things, I don't know if we ever get to where we are now.
Yeah. I think that the thing here really is that, like, back in the day, I think a lot of these guys who ran schools, there was sort of there was the Junri. I mean, martial arts business in America goes back to Junri and the McDojo kind of approach of giving kids belts and giving adults belts and taking a lot of the combat out of it. And these guys are all trying to be professional martial artists in a time when there was not the UFC. It was the Yellow Pages, and there were sometimes challenge matches, and Brunak was creating his own challenge matches, going to the bar with his mouthpiece and starting literal fights to test out his martial arts. Um, so I think the history, a lot of that goes back to like they're trying to run a business, and it's that was the best way they knew how, is to teach techniques and patterns, and probably this. There was a guy on Combat Learning with Josh Peacock from Spain, I believe, who I think tied some of the history to Japan, to when the samurai all lost their jobs and the trainers wanted to continue doing what they were doing, and they started sort of systematizing and organizing techniques. And at the end of the day, all this stuff just goes back to people trying to spar and beat people up. But we were talking about our gym. Yeah, like when I started hearing about the ecological approach, there was a set of us who just got together every day at 11, and we would roll, and we would get together at 4 and spar. And some of the guys did more drilling, but a lot of the best guys never drilled anything. And they were the ones that were they were the mad enforcers beating everyone up. So when I started hearing about this, and I had never really drilled, and one of my main guys that I partner with he's a 10-time black belt IBJJF Masters world champion now. The guy's barely ever drilled anything. And so when I started hearing about this, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is making a lot of sense. But back to what we're talking about, Greg and Dan, like they're trying to attract the masses, and they want to change people's lives and make people's lives better. And these are the best tools that they have. And also they want to reflect loyalty to the people that helped them. And they want that because they want that from their students as well. And I think so they're using those methods as a vehicle to develop that strong bond in the team, and have that sense of loyalty amongst the students to each other and then to them. And because they're trying to keep the doors open and the lights on. And that's really, I think, where I think we get a lot of friction now, like you're with Matt, like you have with Matt Thornton, like where he's trying to understand what you're saying. And, we're all trying to run schools and have a lot of students and have a room. And I mean, this was the thing in the paper that I think was some of the subtext was, I want the soccer mom and the lawyer and the teenager and the MMA fighter to be able to be in the same practice room. And obviously they can't all be partners, but we want them to all be there and get the best experience that they can. And I think what I would argue, and I think you guys would agree, is that done right, the ecological approach and the constraint set approach is that methodology. Done wrong, you're going to mess it up. It can go horribly wrong too. So you have to be a better coach. You have to have, as someone used to tell us back in the day, you have to be like a lifeguard. You have to be even a better lifeguard now, and pay closer attention to the practice activities you design. Whereas with the traditional approach, you could just go on YouTube and copy what Danaher says and show up and talk for 20 minutes and everybody feels good, but I mean, there's a huge gap between I taught it and they actually learned it. And I'll often try to sell people on this, like how much have you forgotten versus how much you've learned in martial arts or anything. And I think even schools are doing a terrible job at teaching, because they're basing, this idea on how people learn in this idea of cognitive psychology. And I don't want to talk bad about cognitive psychology necessarily, but I love what Julia Blau says about the analogy with Newtonian physics and quantum mechanics, and how they still use Newtonian physics sometimes, but like this newer theory has kind of taken over it, and so I think that really helps people see like what we're talking about, anyways.
Well, Newtonian physics is what will affect all of us every day in our lives. It's what we see, right? And so we don't want to, who said recently, we don't want to destroy motivation with information.
Yeah, that's real.
And so if someone's like, they want to learn how a ball flies, then you just give them Newtonian mechanics. If you start talking about quantum physics, then they're like, what the hell does that have to do with a ball flying?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that Danaher's language is like 1,000 words to say attention or intention or just spar? Or like, have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I have. Now he's incredibly popular, and he is probably one of the best coaches in the world
For sure.
and for a set of people. And I first took a class with him in 2009, so I had heard about him way back in the day, and I made Greg Nelson come with me. And there's like 100 people in there, and we had heard from Dave Camarillo that, like, and Dave Camarillo is a sick judo and jiu-jitsu black belt, like highly skilled guy. And he was like, yeah, but you guys got to go to John Danaher and ask about leg locks, because there's levels to this. And we're like, okay. So we show up, he comes out, he talks for like a minute and sits down and does not walk around and correct anyone. And he came over and introduced himself to Greg because he knew Greg, but and he helped us a bit. But for the most part, he did not correct anyone, and his demonstrations were super, super short, but highly um, specific about what both people should be doing. And it took me a long time to really understand like why he took that approach. But I think what you see on the videos and the Instagram posts is in part marketing. And I mean, people want these really intricate, long-winded 8 diagram forms that they can memorize and then play like a video game on the white belt and then they can teach the white belt. It feels good, I think, to have this set of secrets that other people don't have and feel like that's the answer. A lot of us are people that were skinny nerds that were bullied in high school, and now you get into jiu-jitsu, and you can use that to get a sense of control. But when he actually teaches, it's a lot different. It's a lot more succinct. And I even saw a video not too long ago where he was using a CLA style game. So
Yeah, well, that's my point. Like, he is going to end up being the head of the ecological approach at some point
maybe.
because
I
he
do,
already
I,
has
I
it.
do sense it. I do sense a drift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dave, just an aside, when Forrest fought in a tough finale, afterwards we stayed in Vegas and we were just hanging out and training, and Randy Couture was fighting that week, and we were good friends with Randy and Rob Folis, and there was a guy in the cage. There was a black belt in the cage just moving around with some of his students and stuff. And Rory, probably a pro belt at that point, was like, "Do you think he would roll with me if I asked him?" And I said, "Well, you never know." And we didn't come from a traditional world, so Rory went to the cage. He was like, "Hey, can we? Do you want to roll? You want to move around a little bit?" Because everyone was rolling at that point. And so the guy said yes, but I could tell in his body language that he didn't like being asked to train by somebody he didn't know. So I had never seen someone do so many flying attacks in my life before. He just killed Rory. I think he did a flying armbar, then a flying triangle, then some kind of flying fucking sweep. I don't know what the hell it was. It was like 2 minutes. Rory got tapped 3 times embarrassingly, left the cage, and was so dejected. We find out later it's Camarillo,
Yeah. Yep.
who trained all his jiu-jitsu, I guess, at Half's place,
Yep.
which is
Yeah.
like, that's a place where, you just kill everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know. Years later, we realized what the hell had happened, but it took a while to
Yeah.
figure out what the hell had
Yeah.
happened.
He's sick, man. He's sick.
Yeah,
He's now
but he was he was mean.
Zuckerberg's coach.
He
Yeah.
was mean back then too.
Oh yeah. When he first came to our gym, he was like 150 pounds, and he had just gotten his black belt. And our guys are decent. I think they're decent. And they're big. Like some of the guys are like 190. He's arm locking them like in 45 seconds. And I remember it was like a Friday night, and they're all just sitting there like heads down between their. They're like, "What happened?"
Yeah,
Dude was sick, man. I'm sure he still is.
he's
Yeah,
probably all
I
beat
want to
up.
talk about a couple of fights, and the first one I never even saw, but I know you have some thoughts on it. The Rico Usyk.
Oh, I have thoughts on it.
I didn't see
I have
it.
questions because a bunch of my students asked me, like, is this because his style was so awkward? And without knowing, I have three hypotheses. One, Usyk just did not give a shit. Like, he didn't prepare for this. I saw a lot of footage of him fucking around in training.
You
I
look a
don't know if
little softer, right?
he looked softer. He just, everything leading up to the fight just looked different to me. Like, he was taking this like a joke. And then he got in there with a very large man who had a good strategy and was laying on him. And I think he just never got into the fight. The flip side did he prepare? And he was just showing a style that he could not solve over that short amount of time. And
I mean,
the answer is probably somewhere in between.
it's interesting. I asked Pat Barry once about training in Holland. So I didn't see the fight, but they spar pretty hard in the Netherlands. And I asked Pat about that. I'm like, do you get concussed every day? And he was like, well, some people do, but they quit. But really, you got to get really good at avoiding the damage because it's really damaging to spar like that. And so the people that stick around get really good at avoiding the damage. So I would suspect that Rico, because he's from the Netherlands, has a good ability to adapt like that to avoid big damage. And again, I didn't see the fight, but I would suspect that might be part of it. That he is, because he's sparred so much, he's with probably really big Dutch guys, that he developed that skill adaptation.
What do you think, Scotty?
Well, I only saw the highlights, and I was quick
Yeah.
to jump to it because it fits my narrative, right? It was probably a novelty there. I did see from the highlights, Rico was kind of moving kind of odd and clumsily and plodding forward and stuff. And I mean, I've said this about Lomachenko too. Lomachenko seems to have his greater struggles against other lefties and whatnot. And I think it's just a familiarity issue. But I don't know. It could be all the
Well,
other things.
yeah, exactly. And so, like everything, it's a complex system. I don't think we can probably isolate any one variable. Lomachenko also had harder time with lefties that later when his athleticism started to fade. And Usyk is reaching that point where, the mileage and the tread on the tires, especially fighting a couple weight classes high, have to be taking a bit of a toll on him. And so, yeah, I don't think we can necessarily isolate. I think he was losing the fight, not badly, but I think he was losing the fight at that point, and the stoppage was suspect. The bell rang, so I would like to see a rematch because I think he takes a rematch seriously because it's damaging to his legacy, and he will train for it. And so, will he bring in a couple guys that move like that? Will he be in better shape? Will he do more rounds? And then I'd like to see what it looks like. Because it's the same thing. Like Conor looked good against Mayweather for a few rounds because Mayweather probably just didn't train for that. Fury looked horrible versus Ngannou, just physically looked horrible because he probably didn't train for it. But here's the question. So my guys are all geeked up now about like if Ilia Topuria does boxing and gets in there with one of these, and his weight classes have very high level guys, And I said his MMA style is so traditionally boxing that he will get destroyed if he faces, anyone in their boxing prime.
That's interesting.
Because he's not a novel, like if Rico was novel, if Conor was novel, and Ngannou's novel, Topuria is not novel.
So you're saying almost his boxing is
too good,
so boxy-ish that he's
but
just
it's not high level.
But it's not the highest level,
right? Topuria's boxing in MMA is high level. His striking is high level in MMA because he will occasionally kick, he will occasionally take down, but it's not boxing level boxing. I think Josh Van is a better boxer in MMA than Topuria. But it doesn't matter because we're doing MMA. But I think if you put Topuria in the ring and he boxes a boxer, he'll get chewed up.
I mean, that's been my experience training with pro boxers, and a lot of our fighters' experience training with pro boxers is we all get chewed up. We're punching at ghosts and just getting counter punched 6 times to 0.
I mean, it has to be easier. It has to be easier to remove layers of complexity than it is to add. So a boxer could never come to MMA and survive.
No.
But a striker who's used to strikes being thrown at them, like you said about Rico, has the ability to survive a bit. I just thought Usyk should have been taking his body apart, should have been, he didn't look like, I think against another boxer, he would have lost that fight badly. That the Usyk that showed up in the ring that night. I don't think that it was necessarily Rico's novelty as much as that was one of those nights. I think if he had fought, Anthony Joshua or someone, he would have still lost. But I could be wrong.
I want to defend the MMA guys a little bit too, because you hear this all the time that MMA fighters are striking sucks and it's shitty compared to boxing. But I'm like, well, of course it's going to look shitty to boxing. The degrees of freedom are enormous compared to boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not the same. Even though it looks the same in isolation, it's not the same. It's just, is there any other sport we expect people, like, would we argue, that the ping pong player sucks at tennis?
Yeah, or baseball and cricket, or soccer and futsal, or, I don't know.
Rugby and football.
Yep.
So why do we do this?
I want to bring the back to more of the local fights, and I've had some mixed results again the last couple of weekends. Andy, your boy Dallin Jones.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what a terrific young man. The sportsmanship and the character he showed after his fight, I was really impressed. Yeah. But he went against one of our guys, Eric. It was a good fight. It was 5 rounds. 1,000 apologies. Eric missed weight by a couple of pounds, and we're embarrassed by that. But anyway, it was a good fight. It was a very fair decision. A guy Eric and we knew Dallin was extremely explosive.
Because we fought your guy the last time Dallin fought too, right? Or he's kind of your guy. Your guy knocked out. He got knocked out by Milwaukee.
No.
I,
That was
he's Pure Vita, but
that was Gabe Pugh from
okay.
Ronin Fitness,
Oh,
one of Sam
Ronan.
Garrett's
That's
guys.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Ronan Pure Vita. Okay. Anyways, yeah, Daylock.
And Dallin was putting heat on him and then got clipped with a counter. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
very impressive young man. But Eric couldn't quite pull the trigger, and it keeps bringing me back. I'm thinking, is there a passivity in sometimes the way we train in the lightness? And I've always said, because I'm not suggesting at all that Dallin is a brawler, not at all. But it's a problem I'm struggling to solve at amateur level, right? Just
I
really
agree. Yeah.
biting down and going for it.
I
But
feel
then
you.
I took a guy up for a debut kickboxing fight last week, and he fought a guy, MMA fighter, had some kickboxing, but a guy with 12 fights. And it was my guy Sully's debut, and he looked fantastic. He was violent, he was
Yeah.
aggressive, he was responsible, he didn't fold, and it was a terrific expression and aggression.
Yeah.
But they both come from this. So again, I'm getting these mixed results.
Yeah.
I wish it was one way or the other.
These are just anecdotes. So I don't think that we have the exact answer, but I've been listening to your podcast from the beginning and following your journey from afar. And I agree with you. I think that keeping it on the lighter side and keeping the intensity dialed down, like there's no way to fully get an exact fight. I mean, we do these pancration and smokers and scrimmages where we get it kind of close, but there's nothing like the full thing. So, and in Dalen's case, he is really, really naturally gifted with quick twitch muscle fiber, and psychologically too. He's very humble and focused. He came like that already, but I've actually been encouraging to slow down so he can see more. Because I think when he's been clipped a few times in practice and in a fight because he's so fast and athletic that he's missing seeing sometimes. So it's been, I think people like that, been a kind of a good thing and a bad thing for them. But 100%, I think like you say, concussions and cuts are non-negotiable in sparring. You're not getting better at getting hit by going super hard and getting hit. Um, and yeah, that's all we can do. And I feel like I've been seeing, but I think the same thing that you guys are seeing is that when it comes to performing, the guys are going to make the jump from that um, technical kind of middle sparring where maybe we're close to the line of too hard, uh, are making it just fine. And it's my guess, my sense is we are getting more finishes like as we make our training like that more. Um, but also I feel like it's sort of taking more risks, and our guys, I feel like we have been on the wrong end or the spectacular end of losing sometimes too because they're taking more risks, and that's just the game. Just how we're not in control of everything, and you do everything you can, but that's just the risk you take.
Well, maybe that rubbed off because Dallin surprised me a little. It surprised us a little bit. Certainly surprised Eric because I was expecting this fucking whirlwind to come out from the
Yeah.
bell. And he had an extremely cautious first round. I would say he gave the first round away. And I don't
Uh-huh.
know because if it was a 5 round, but I'm like, this is not at all what we were expecting.
Uh-huh.
But it was a good fight and credit to him. Again, the character he showed after that was, I'm a Dallin Jones fan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's going to go far.
Yeah, I don't think that's the question we always ask is how close, how representative can we get, and how representative do we want to get? Because I think we can get pretty representative, but do we want to be there? How often? How much? What's the minimal effective dose? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's an answer because everybody's going to be different. And I talk about this with sort of like with Shark Tanks. Forrest is still big on Shark Tanks. And I was saying that I think there are some athletes that's a benefit to, but there are some athletes where it's
Yeah.
a detriment.
Yeah. 100%.
And a really explosive fighter who paces themselves in a fight, like Tyrone Woodley, who explodes and then paces himself, is going to die in a Shark Tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a confidence killer.
Yeah.
And so we have to match sort of what they need at different stages to how we train them. And it doesn't, Shark Tanking everyone is not the answer.
No, well, that's the personal, there's this old wine and new bottles. Oh, you guys we always do that. And that's the part where I think I depart and I say, look, no, what we're saying is we need to, in an ideal world, we're personalizing and purposefully manipulating the game, the constraint, the drill, whatever you call it. And that's what I think when you understand the principles, that's what the ideal is. We're trying to individualize and purposefully shape each person according to what their strengths and weaknesses are. And that's the real secret. And that's the hard part. And that it's a lot harder than just showing up and teaching some stuff you saw on a video.
One more question about your stable. There's another kid that's coming that always catches my eye. Is it Sukrob?
Oh yeah, yeah, the Tajik kid, yeah.
What a fucking animal.
Yeah,
Tell me about him.
he's a master of sport in wrestling from Tajikistan, and he has been with us for a couple of years, and he's just the nicest guy ever. He doesn't speak much English, and he's one of those incredibly gifted athletes, and obviously a lot of experience wrestling. And yeah, so I don't know much about him because he doesn't speak too much English, and he actually doesn't train that much.
No, really. He certainly
Nah,
does his talking in the cage.
he does, yeah. Yeah. So I
I
think he's got potential, but he's one of those people. It's like I think he works too. Like I think he's a refugee from Russia. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he's got a pretty much full-time or more than full-time job. So he gets in when he can, and he wants to make it happen. But he's there's that humility from super successful, high-level performers. And he's got that, but I don't know if his life is allowing him the time to really dedicate to MMA to make it super far, but maybe it will. But yeah, he is I've seen him with some pretty high level senior wrestlers, and they're like, who the hell is that guy? So we've had a few of these guys come from the Ukraine and Tajikistan who are just like the level in the sort of the Caucasus area of grappling, the sort of I think it's the enhanced expectations of what everybody should be able to do. It's just understood that everyone should have a certain level of grappling and wrestling over there, and you can see it in the Dagestanis and the Chechens and everybody from that sort of Central Asian part of the world. Like their grappling is just super super good. So
I don't have any wrestlers. I don't have any Chechens. I don't have any Africans.
yeah, dude,
I got none of
really,
that. I'm starting
dude,
at fucking zero with a
we got
bunch
the
of college
entire world,
kids.
bro. We
I got
got
nothing.
we got Africans, and we got Israelis, we got dude, people from Europe. Man, that's the cool thing about MMA and martial arts. It's just like the whole world just squished into one area.
I got a bunch of fucking white bread college kids,
Yeah.
basically.
Where you guys are in Athens though, right? Like I've never even
Yeah,
been to Athens, but
it's a college. It's a college town.
okay. Huh. Well, you'd think
I
there'd
don't.
be some international students that would be
You think
interested in
so?
martial arts.
I mean, I have never. I think this is true. I've never had a high level wrestler that I've gotten to work with for an extended amount of time to fight.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
we have Greg, and I think wrestlers are always like judging based on who they listen to is based on what is the guy's wrestling background,
right.
wrestling results, and
Makes sense though.
so it's I'm really lucky that we get these people because if it was just my gym, I don't know how many high level NCAA guys would be in there listening to my stuff. But once they know me and they hear what I'm saying, then now they'll gravitate towards some of the ideas I'm saying. But they're not coming in because I'm like a senior one, purple belt, second place, whatever IBJJF.
Right. You don't have the automatic
No,
respect.
no,
They
I
have to
wasn't.
give you some time and then they'd be dumb
Yeah,
not to respect you. But
yeah,
you said something before and I've been racking my brain. You said something about a group of guys that never drilled. And I was
yeah.
thinking on my 25 years plus in MMA and BJJ, I've never drilled.
Hmm.
And that was not on purpose. That was because I was the coach.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure this is right, and Roy will tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've done even 2 or 3% of any drilling, except when I went to a seminar, which
Right.
was just
Yeah, same.
boring as shit.
Yeah,
But every time, even when they drilled, I was coaching.
yeah,
And the only work I ever got was sparring.
yeah. And like you said, like when you were talking to Greg about it, like we kind of had these two tracks in the school. We had one for this sort of the hobbyists or regular students, and then there was maybe some middle people who did a little both. And I mean, I think we still have this a little bit. And then the people that are like serious about competing are just meeting up on their own, sparring and rolling together.
So when am I
And
going to see Greg do an ecological seminar?
I don't know, he's still, like he's been teaching seminars for so long, and it's video instructionals, and like there's a market, there's people that want that stuff.
Right.
And he's been telling me, and I haven't taken, we teach at different times, and he's been telling me that when he teaches jujitsu that he's been telling me about the games he's designing and stuff. So I know he's doing it. and then we will like the fighters ask me, the pro guys had, wanted me to do one of the practice for their schedule. They wanted me to do one of the practices. And then so he's been sitting with me, and then I'll kind of flip my ideas off on him, and we'll kind of go back and forth sometimes. And so I will kind of co-design some games and stuff together. But I think when he thinks about like regular students and seminars and stuff, he still sees that he wants to meet their demand and meet them where they're at. And so and you probably Matt Thornton thinks the same. It's like, well, I already know what I need to do, and I know what they want, and I don't want to mess that up by doing it. But Greg did tell me last year that he went to the CSW conference with Eric Paulson that he had, and I should have followed up with him, but he was like, I'm going to do some games for that session. And he probably did, but I never really followed up, and I don't know if he did or not.
I
So
think
you teach a pro practice and you teach a foundations class. Is that right?
Well, I don't really do foundations anymore,
Okay.
but I teach a pro MMA practice. And then I think, I would say that Greg and Nat and I kind of co-design, and like our sparring days where they're doing like the more striking focused and shoot boxing focused stuff, we're doing a lot together with the fighters too. It's been interesting to watch that evolve, and I didn't even notice it. And I was blathering on when they were like, yeah, but listen, like what we're actually doing is what you're saying. So shut up. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you guys are right. Um,
So
so I do that,
what are some
but
drills? What are some constraints and drills and things you do in for shoot boxing? I'm always interested in shoot boxing, especially with
so like
non-wrestlers and stuff.
I teach an intermediate kind of beginner intermediate, and I want it to be more beginner friendly, and I'm struggling with that. And it's a complicated mess. There's like 30 coaches, and everybody wants everybody to go to their class. But and when George Patterson was alive, he really liked the practice that I had that was sort of the intermediate beginner level, and he came all the time. And then when he was there, he would kind of get guys to come, and so it was a lot bigger of a practice. But in that class, answer your question, I start off, Saturday I started off with no glove, no shin pad technique sparring. And so I just let them do striking with no gloves and no shin pads. And I'm like, listen, don't hurt each other, just spar. And I watch them, and I'll maybe give them a few cues here and there, but like probably not more than one for one or two guys. And then for shoot boxing, it's now we're going to put the MMA gloves on, no shin pads. And I think we did one guy shoots and one guy is just defending. And I don't give them a lot of instruction. I just say, go ahead and pick up a leg. If you're going to finish, you have to set them down gently. And then I go from there. And then I'll even transition to putting the shin pads on and letting them both shoot takedowns. And I'm just like, listen, be careful. And over the past, so the concern is for people that are listening is that people can get cuts when people are shooting in. They can run into an elbow or a knee. And I've only, in the past 6 years of doing it like that, I think I've only had one cut. So, I think that's more related to having the culture, like I talked about in the beginning of the podcast today, is having a good culture. So, yeah, but then I'm trying to watch what's happening, and then I'll try to ask them like, what are you guys struggling with? And then I'll start to shape the rules around that
Yeah.
based on what I'm seeing and what they're asking. But like with striking, it's and so-called scrambling, like there's not a lot of I think explicit thought and information that I can dictate to them that they will then do. They just have to get in that playful space where it's safe and just play a lot and feel comfortable with each other and have fun doing it. And I'm still trying to find that sweet spot. I'm not there at all by any means, but I'm still going to keep doing it. I'm still going to keep trying to figure it out. But I think
I'm not sure
that's really
I'm not sure there is a sweet spot,
there
right?
is.
Because
It's there. I'm just
see, I don't think there is, just from the sense that
yeah,
every class, every group of people, every drill,
yeah,
every constraint, every objective will have a different sweet spot.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we all are at the sweet spot holistically, right?
Yeah.
Safe live training. Isn't that the sweet spot?
Yes.
Safe live representative training.
Fun, like in out of their head and just enjoying it, like they should want to be there doing the thing they're doing, and just
Right.
when that enjoyment and that emotional, like that's like the fourth principle in Rob Gray's book about representative learning design, when that emotional thing is there, and when you hit that, that's where the learning opens up. They get done, they're like, man, I felt like the sense of competency was really rising as I was doing these things. And yeah, I got hit, I missed that or whatever, but I saw what I could do to fix it. They are their best coach, and my job is to help them realize that, I think.
I think one of the reasons I went to, so I want to ask you if you do any of the non-head contact stuff in a second, Andy, but when I was in my last gym and before I was going to open Primal with my partner, I actually ran a cardio kickboxing class as part of my last gym. And it was, like mums and that would come in while their kids were in the kids class. And towards the end, I started dabbling with doing a bit more live stuff. And I thought, okay, just hit each other on the shoulders, don't hit, because they didn't want to get hit in the face. And they loved it. They loved it. And this is what I've been playing around with for the last 5-6 years. And for me, it's building it. We build the culture through foundations. And it just seems absurd to most traditional coaches that you would let someone spar on their first day. And I'm just so far in there, I'm like, why wouldn't you let them spar on the first day?
Yeah. We had, I don't know if you guys
Make a case for that. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know Dave Kovar.
I know the name.
He's a famous karate. He's a jiu-jitsu black
business
belt.
guy.
Yeah, he's super interesting and long-term martial artist. Like, just loves the martial arts, and he's been by our gym a few times. And I'm sort of like the Sean Mishka of our gym, and I'm like the skill acquisition specialist. So I'm trying to guide. We have coaches that have been with us for almost as long as me, and been, coaching the way they coach for many years. And I'm trying to steer the ship in this direction now. And so after having listened to you, Scott, for 5 years, I've encouraged them to try sparring on the first day, and I would say that a lot of them are fully sold on it, and they're doing it. Anyways, Dave Kovar was watching. He's like, "Wow, you guys are having them spar on the first day." He's like, and I didn't hear him say this, but he said, like, "I'm gonna have to go back and think how I can get this into my program." And so it's I think it's really hard for people to, because the word spar, I think, brings up this idea of somebody actually getting hit and hard, and most of us have had experience with sparring getting hit, but these non-contact shoulder tag, leg tag games I think are the perfect introduction to learning how to do actual striking. And look, there's a moral question that underlies all this. Like, you're teaching someone how to defend themselves, and I feel like there's a duty there to, like, actually teach them how to defend themselves. And if there's a faster and better way to get them there, we should all be doing it. And getting hit in the head is probably not the right answer to keep people coming back to practice, but understanding the distance and the relationship between a moving body and your body is probably the most foundational skill we can do. And those shoulder tag games are the best, and they're fun, and they get people out of their head. If they've been stressed out at work all day and they're here to, relax and enjoy themselves, then letting them be a kid and just play tag is a great way to do that. So, I do that occasionally in the MMA class that I teach, and I know that some of the foundations coaches are using some of that. But yeah, we're
you know what? I'll tell you another place that the chest shoulders has been helpful is if I design a game where it affords counter punching, but we know that counter punching is where those guard crashes occur, then because everyone's come up now with a lot of chest and shoulder work, I can say, okay, I want the counters to be to the chest and the shoulder. And so we could almost mix like a sniper game where one side initiates the contact and the other side is trying to counter immediately, and that could afford a car crash. The counter goes chest shoulder. Now all of a sudden the person that's initiating can take a little more risk. We can keep it a little safer, but we can keep it much faster.
Yeah. Now, you got in the chat, you guys were talking about the actual games and drills you do, and I hadn't responded or whatever, but one of the things I thought of that we've tried and I think we get good results is we'll divide the class into groups, and we'll give assignments to each group so the one side doesn't know what the other side is doing, and it feels sort of representative, right? Because you're going to be fighting against the other side that has a game plan and an idea that they're going to try to interact, and you don't know. Have you guys ever done something like that with the groups?
So I'll put up Post-its on the wall with like 10 different conditions, let's say.
Okay.
Stay open, or pressure, or run, or counter fight, or just very simple conditions. And I'll say, between rounds, I want you to come over. I want you to identify one of these conditions that you want to try. You can't use the same one each time. I want you to identify one of the conditions, and I want you to, that is your character for
I'm stealing
the round.
that. I'm stealing that. And
Feel free.
Scott's got the coins or whatever.
Or the
Yeah,
little
Scott's
token.
played with a lot of that kind of stuff, which I think is, awesome.
Mhm.
I've had them pick out of a hat, like the submission they are going to try
Mm.
for that round or that day, all kinds of different things. But yeah, I like it's a similar idea, Andy. It's just like, how can we get them to not know what the other person is doing? And
Mhm.
and then at the end of the round, sometimes I'll have them tell each other, like, okay, I think you
Yeah.
were playing this game. I think you were playing this game. And
Yeah.
sometimes they identify it quickly, but how quickly can they calibrate to
Yeah.
both things? Because I think part of variability is getting them out of their comfort zone.
Yes.
And so I've been something I've seen in my fighters is their ability after like a first round, like let's say they fight the first round on their back foot. We had this happen recently in a pro fight. My fighter was fighting off his back foot because he's a counter fighter generally, and the other guy was too long and too fast.
Mhm.
And so my guy was just getting chewed up, and so when he came back to the round, Rory said, I need you to get on your front foot. Now that's fine for a corner to say, but most of the time, if that's not their personality, that's
Yeah.
wasted. Now your fighter's just confused. But we've done a lot of drills where we've asked guys to fight on their back foot, on their front foot, switch from the back foot to the front foot. And so when he said that to him, my guy knew what that game was
Mhm.
and immediately was able to make that switch to fighting on his front foot. And he started to win. He won the fight.
Nice.
And so I want the guys, part of being adaptable is, can you fight on your front foot, your back foot? Can you push? Can you pull? Can you counter? Can you go first?
Mhm.
And so I like to force them to do those things. And
Yeah.
so, those are different ways I mess with that.
Would you classify that as differential learning or CLA?
I still think it's CLA
Okay.
because I'm constraining to afford something. I see differential learning as messing with the way they normally do something.
Like purposely making it wrong to create
Yeah, or more difficult.
stochastic
Yeah.
resonance so that they
Yeah.
organize around the
So
attractor
maybe
state
if
that is best
like
for them.
Scotty's like one-legged drills I see as differential learning.
What are your one-legged drills, Scotty?
I play a little, excuse me. I play a little game with Peeps where they both get into their Daniel San kind of swan
Uh-huh.
stance, and they've just got to, as long as they're on one foot, they're still in the game. They're just trying to use their push kicks to destabilize the other side. And if the other side 2 feet hit the floor, they lose, they start again. And it looks fucking awful, but they're
Yeah.
starting to get this hip hinge and a sense of balance and stuff. So I play around with stuff like that.
I feel like I've listened to enough of these people on podcasts critique stuff like that and say, well, that's missing a lot of specifying information when you do it like that. And I had a small debate with Greg Souders about grappling with the racquetballs in your hands. He doesn't like that. And I do it for I teach a gi class once a week, and I sometimes have them warm up with, holding the racquetballs. And my thing is like, some people are, when they're starting off with the gi, they grip too tightly. And I feel like it releases those degrees of freedom faster. And so I don't know, but I like it all. And I think when we give people a lot of different problems to solve over time, we're just developing this ability, I guess, a competence where I've adapted to all these things. Like one of those Russian guys at the gym was telling me that when he was a kid and he wanted to join wrestling, the coach made him to show that he could do a backflip first. And what the hell does a backflip have to do with wrestling, really? But maybe it gives a kid a sense of like, this felt challenging. Like I couldn't do a backflip, and now I can do a backflip. So now I can take another kid down, and I just need that sense that I could do something difficult or what seemed. And once I start to do more and more challenging and difficult things, then I start to have a stronger sense of delusion or belief that I can actually do it. Whatever that is.
I don't love the balls in the hands just because I'm worried if they fall, like if they get put on their hands, they're going to fall awkwardly.
Yeah.
So I usually just cue them to keep their hands in mittens.
Sure. Yeah, I've done that, or like fist. I had fit, just keep your hand in a fist too. But yeah.
But like you're talking about, like I did a seminar recently, and I was doing a seminar. It was passing, and played just a very simple keeping the feet off you game, and everyone was sort of really bent over. And in the past, I would have probably said, I need you to keep better posture. But then I realized, what the fuck does posture even mean? And so I said, okay, person on bottom, you can up kick. Now, I don't want you to up kick. I don't want you to up kick your partners in the face. And these, like, it was a group from white to black and hobbyists and stuff, and they were like horrified. And I'm like, I don't really want you to up kick, but do you understand my point?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, people are not bent over because they might get up kicked. And it's I think that it's things like that. The more we can do things like that. So maybe the balls in the hand isn't perfect, but you're looking for an outcome. You're looking to challenge them.
Yeah.
So does it do harm?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
5-minute round, like, does
No.
it do harm? No.
No.
I think it's also it's not going to help as a community as we're trying to get some traction here and spread these ideas that we start saying this game's better than that game, or these games suck and these, like, I don't think we fucking
agreed.
know. And it's unclear to me whether we can do the ecological approach wrong.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, and what is it even? You know, there's a theory and there's two diametrically opposed founding principles to some degree. They reach a point where it's like it's either this or that. But when it comes to the coaching space or the coaching practice and how you design practice, like, you know, it's the roots not branches thing back in the day from Rob Gray's podcast, where like there is going to be these trees as they grow up. There's going to be a lot of overlapping, and so the practice space itself, there's going to be some things that we never do, but then there's going to be these middle things where like we're, you know, depending on what theory you believe in, you're still going to have some of the same practice ideas and practice games. And it's, you know, is it a giant opportunity cost? No, it's not. I don't believe so at all.
No, and I mix things up for pragmatic reasons, but you're talking about the roots and the branches. If you're to take the ecological psychology or dynamical system, okay, so ecological dynamics is extreme, then that's all it is. It's just sparring, and slices of sparring. And you know, again, we don't know exactly what effect that particular session has because it's complex and we don't have access to that. We'll never have access to that. But if you take it to its extreme, that's what it's telling us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I'm talking to Coach Hav a couple of weeks ago, and you know, I'm worried that we're sometimes not doing enough, but then I'm watching the results and I'm like, okay, well, we're doing well. You know, we're doing well. One of our jiu-jitsu black belts, she just 2 days ago, just won the American Nationals. She's the number 2 ranked Nogi grappler and Masters female black belt in the world. And
because we know if we put a bunch of people in the room who are athletic and motivated and get the fuck out of their way,
just
then
play the game.
Most of the work gets done for us. And then we walk around and we can just nudge them or guide them. I think if you give me a group of black belts and you're like, hey, coach this group of black belts for the next 6 months, all they're going to do, I'm going to talk about intentionality, and then they're going to roll.
Yeah.
And they will, certain partners they'll go harder with, certain partners will go easier, certain days they will self-adjust a lot of that. And I'll just get out of the way because those black belts probably know more about jiu-jitsu than I do.
Yeah.
So
you've used the word nudge quite a bit on
I like nudge. Me and Scotty
have you read
like
the
nudge.
book?
I have read the book, but that's not where it's coming from. But I can't think of another word to use to just like gently push them.
Yeah.
Have you considered this? Hey, I'd love to see you try this. Start here. It's all very gentle.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and use the word nudge a bunch next week when we're together.
That's right. Oh yeah, Sport Movement Skill Conference.
Exactly. I can't wait to see both of you guys. It's going to be awesome to be face to face. You're going to be on crutches, Andy?
Yeah, that'll be my last 3 days, but I got a couple of the other coaches. Nat, you remember Nat McIntyre? He's coming, and then one of the other guys.
Fantastic.
Too, so. And then
Nat's a badass.
Yeah.
You will not be able to defend my double leg on crutches. That's for sure.
No.
All right. You guys keep going without me. I look forward to hearing what you guys talk about without me. I have to go to a practice.
All right.
Okay. We're gonna tie this up now anyway. And
I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, Adam.
Thank you. See you, Adam.
And then it was 2.
All right.
I'm sorry I haven't invited you on before, Andy, because and then listen to your interview with Javi last week. Javi's a wonderful communicator and interviewer.
Yeah, I often recommend his podcast to people who are just get started. I think does the best job of simplifying. Remember when Tom Stoffman was talking about you have to be able to explain your science, in 5 minutes or less. I think Javi is one of the guys in the space that does that the best. So
yeah, his presentation from last year is one. Him and the football guy.
Coach it's wifeful. Yeah. That guy's awesome.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Skipped all the jargon, skipped all the buzzwords.
Yeah.
Just a very engaging presentation. So
yeah, I wish I could do that. I also occasionally teach a coaching course at the academy, and man, I aspire to be able to tell stories like those guys and communicate like that. So
the last thing I want to say with regards to the buy-in and how our roles as coaches are changing. I was like just obsessed with getting the games and the skill right and the blah 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 and all that before, and my roles changed now. I'm purely there. Well, I'm primarily there for the culture and the support and just keeping my athletes engaged. And what I'm really enjoying, Andy, and you've been doing this a lot longer than me, I don't actually enjoy the fights that much when they're in the cage. But the lead up, the run up, just starting to understand my athletes better and connecting with them prior, and seeing that they're all very different and they all need, some just need to be left alone. Some, like the guy I was talking about who had a great performance last week, Sully, I could tell 15 minutes before he's getting hyper excited, and I just felt like we connected and we resonated, and we managed to get, you know, his anxiety down and change it into excitement, and he went out and had a great performance. But at the end, when I went to, I was telling him obviously how proud I was of him, but I was, and this is going to sound cheesy and corny as fuck, but I said to him, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful because I've really not coached him. I've just been alongside him, given him a hint or a tip here or there. And I said, thank you for trusting what we've been doing, because it's been a hard sell. And he's been training his ass off, and he lost 40 pounds for this fight, and he was fully committed, and it all came together, and it was just beautiful. And I don't take any credit for it, because how can you take credit for a culture when you're only a little part of it?
Yeah, it's really satisfying like that. And I'm like you, I really like seeing the growth of amateur fighters from day zero to like having their first fight after, you know, a year or two or whatever, like, and seeing them go through that experience. For me, watching George Pedersen go through that was just, it was awesome to see him go and almost become a pro, right, from day zero essentially. And you know, those are the moments that make, you know, doing what we're doing so fun and engaging. And you know, we were talking about martial arts business or whatever, but one of our Rory and I's mentors back in the day said one of the questions you got to ask yourself as a person who coaches and runs a martial arts business is, how do you want to spend your time, and who do you want to be around? And that's a more primal question than, you know, how much money do you want to make, or how big of champions do you want to have, or anything. Like, you want to spend your time around people that you want to be around, and doing the things you want to do. And you know, like you, I really enjoy seeing, you know, jiu-jitsu people too. I like seeing jiu-jitsu people in the beginning. There's great growth. Whereas I feel like my coach Greg, he really likes taking people who are super elite and making them even more elite. And I still don't see myself as that. I probably am. I actually probably am, but I want to be like him. I want to be better at making elite, but that's just a project that I'm still working on and trying to get better on.
Yeah, me too. Okay, well, Andy, that's thank you very much for your time today.
Yes, sir.
I look forward to hanging out with you next week. It's a shame we can't get a roll in next week.
Yeah, well, dude, we've been like ships passing in the night. Like, you've been at the fights and I've been traveling or whatever, and you've been at the academy, and I came down to see you guys like last summer, and your gym flooded, and it's been you know, the world. So we'll hang out next weekend, and we're still gonna dojo storm you guys someday here. So
please do.
Yes.
And you're always flattering me. I'm when you talk, I listen, and you've been doing this. I'm a Johnny come lately compared to you. So Andy Grahn from the academy, check him out. If he talks, listen.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Scott.
All right, my man. See you.
All right. Yeah. Bye-bye.